Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up. Here we go.
Hello, No Spinners. Tommy Joe Lucia here. I'm joined with the illustrious Kendra Santos and our wizard of production, Greg Teagarden. Welcome to Tuesday, August 19th. This is the 72nd version of No Spin Rodeo. Thank you all for joining us either live on Facebook or on YouTube or on our channel, or if you're listening to podcast a little later on the way to work or whatever you've got going on. But we are a multi-digital platform, I'm just saying. So welcome to No Spin Rodeo. Hello, Greg. Hello, Kendra. Where are y'all at today?
Hello. I feel like I'm fighting with a cord here. I just skidded back into my desk from being at the Cal Poly Rodeo Arena, and I darted down there to say hello to Joe Beaver because he's having a breakaway roping and tight-end roping jackpot down there for like a youth event for 3 days. And suddenly he doesn't think I'm so crazy because San Luis Obispo's weather, it averages 80 degrees year round. And, oh, I get it now, he says. Oh, anyway.
Well, I just got back from Caldwell and Sykeston. So 2 great rodeos. Put on 2 good shows.
Did you go throw the bread?
No, I didn't go to the throwed rolls. Nope. Missed
That's Lambert's.
Lambert's, yeah.
My father-in-law loved Lambert's. He just loved the thought of throwing a biscuit across the room.
They're big biscuits and they toss them.
They do toss them. I thought the food was okay. I wouldn't travel to Sykeston, Missouri to toss a biscuit, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Especially not at Lambert's.
They're doing a business because every time you drive by it, there's people standing outside waiting to get in.
Cowboys.
Well, I'm at the wonderful South Point Hotel and Casino in lovely, very, very hot Las Vegas. Attended the PRC Sponsor Summit today at Resorts World. We'll talk about that more later. But yeah, I love, and it's little insiders. They're redoing the elevators here. Like they don't look like, it's kind of sad because it seems like everybody's redoing stuff. And a lot of the old memories, I mean, these elevators have mirrors in them now and fancy floors. And only half of them work. Hopefully they all work by the time we get here. Ryan said that the rest of the elevators are on the roof. Mr. Growney did, and they'll be in. They're going to go in. But yeah, elevator construction here at South Point. Lots of bowlers. The funny thing I saw this morning was because the elevators, there's not as many. This older man, probably over 70, must be in the bowling competition here. His wife is on a scooter. And he piled up his 9 bowling balls in her lap to the point where she couldn't get over the hump of the elevator. That's irrelevant data.
No,
Kendra, take us around Pro Rodeo.
The elevators, if they could talk at the South Point, and with all the newfangled stuff, they might want to turn off their cameras during the 10-day run of the NFR inside the elevators. On a kind of
funny stories about security footage actually today at South Point, which I better not repeat, but everything from people trying to go up the escalators in their cart, which evidently turns into a flip over backwards moment, is all I'm saying. Very bad crashes if you try to not take the elevator and go up the escalator on your scooter. But
I think it's really sweet. Like, my sons do it too. My dad always did it. That's where they got it. Where when they meet a woman, they take their hat off, and it's very sweet. Every time I don't care what time, day or night, or how many times we've been in that elevator at the South Point. Every time we get into an elevator, Oat takes his hat off. And I think that is really cool. And I don't see most people doing that. I'm not talking down to anybody who doesn't do that, but I think, man, his mom must be so proud. I think that's really a gentlemanly thing to do.
Now I got to take my hat off every time I get in the elevator. Thanks.
Anyway, you want me to
Take us
just roll
around
out?
rodeo world.
Okay,
Tell
so
us what's going on in rodeo.
there's
Rodeo, that
always
is.
so much going on in rodeo. So that a couple of like absolute rodeo institutions have come down in the last week or two. One of them yesterday. So the other day, I don't know if you've seen they had like a footage of the implosion of the Jim Norick Arena in Oklahoma City. We all have some pretty special memories in that building, but predating me, that was home to the NFR from 1965 to 78. And didn't we learn that some really, the original bucking chutes, some of them have been pulled out of there, and maybe was it sent to both halls of fame in Colorado Springs and Oklahoma City, or just Oklahoma City? Somebody was somewhere backstage down below in the basement or whatever. The original wooden bucking chutes were pulled out of there before they tore it down. So,
And Greg, weren't they going to bring those to the fan zone on a trailer? Maybe that's bad memory of mine, but I thought I remembered some of those being carted around on a trailer originally.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Now, does the math because the NFR is celebrating the 40th this year.
yes.
So what would that
Yes.
be?
So 59 was the first one. And since I'm working on a 40 years in Vegas project for Las Vegas events, I did the same thing right out of the gate. I'm like, how's this 40? It's because 2020 was in Texas.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So, okay. So then the other big one. So today's August 19th. Yesterday, August 18th, Chute 9 at the Daddy Mall in Cheyenne came down. And that's basically the timed event end of the arena. I had heard rumblings that Chute 9 was coming down after this year's rodeo. And now I'm really happy. Of course, Oat laughed hysterically at me because when we went to stirruping slack on Sunday at Cheyenne, and the track was above your ankles in mud, and brilliant woman here was wearing sandals. We were going to the truck when it was over, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I walked back to take some pictures of Chute 9, ankle deep. I took my sandals off, and Oat just belly laughed at me because I'm trudging through this ankle deep mud. But now I did. I'm so glad I did, and I did not understand. I knew that the overhead above the chutes was coming down, but I didn't understand that the actual timed event chute, I mean, it's all gone. That's big. But anyway,
Surely they preserved some of it, right?
Surely they did, and of course I've asked the question, and I'll find out. I'm certain that they know how historic it all is, and Tommy Hernstig he'll find some sort of good use for that. The new Chute 9 will include a bridge over the track, which now that's like that at Salinas now too. Multi-levels of seating and a rooftop viewing area. So it appears like additional VIP treatment, right? That seems to be a big part of it. But man, the history that's come out of those, all those years, Dan Taylor running those chutes, and, Paul Cleveland sitting up there. I know for as long as I know, since he quit bulldogging there, Oates sits up there during the bulldog, and it's like you can just see those men that, it's a big deal. That's a lot of history. And I know that, here comes progress everywhere. And I don't know. I haven't seen the schematics of what it's going to look like, but it'll be different. So anyway, today they announced The National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City has changed the name of their rodeo hall to the National Rodeo Hall of Fame. This year, that was a branding name change. And today is the day that they'll announce the class of 2025. Chad Berger, Larry Clayman. I remember being a kid, Larry Clayman was a clown who had a chimpanzee. Did you know Larry Clayman?
Oh, I did. And I knew, I think the chimp's name was Toto, I think.
I think you're right.
Mean. Yes, I've been around Toto. Of course, I was raised with monkeys and primates. And so when you didn't have anything to do, you went and looked at another monkey or primate. But yeah, Toto, he retired in Branson, I think. I think that's where Toto retired, was in Branson there.
Okay.
Yeah, after he maybe bit a kid's ear off or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Toto
Okay.
wasn't overly friendly, by the way. But go ahead. Onward.
Larry Clayman, Joel Edmondson, H.P. Evetts. That delights me personally. The king, the original OG of the headers who reached. Bobby Goodspeed, Charlie Throckmorton. The two deceased inductees this year will be Neil Gay and Wiley McRae. Director's Choice, John Taylor, another, clown barrelman. The Tad Lucas Award, Larry D. Guy, which is wonderful. And the Ben Johnson Award will be Mike Hudson. So congratulations to everyone who is part of that 2025 class. That will come, those festivities will happen in November in Oklahoma City at that place is beautiful and very impressive. And the National Rodeo Hall of Fame will soon undergo a massive renovation, millions of dollars worth of renovation. And so next year I start being the Rodeo Historical Society president. So I am privy to some of that stuff right now, and it's very exciting. They're going to do a major overhaul on the rodeo part for the hall. So that's cool. Okay. The rodeo in Gooding, Idaho just celebrated 100 years and this year. And I thought one of the cool things that happened, so many cool things happen at every rodeo, but Stetson Wright tied his dad Cody's 90-point bronc riding record from Gooding, which is cool in itself. And he did it on J.D. Hamaker's Cowboy Fool. And I thought it was pretty neat. There they are. What did Stetson do with his 100-year anniversary special Gooding buckle? He gave it to J.D. Hamaker, who owns the horse. And I thought that was pretty cool. Sometimes people, I don't know, for whatever reason, they want to kind of bash on the guys with the number one on their back, but that was a sweet thing to do. And you can tell by the look on J.D. Hamaker's face what it meant to him. And so, good for him. Okay, Caldwell, where Greg just was. This kid on his permit from Emmett, Idaho, just won the bareback riding. Mason Yancey. I had never heard of him before. There he is with Haley Novak getting his loot. So he won almost $10,000, and he's not even a card member yet. He was 87 and 84 and a half. He closed it on Powder River's Heads Up Hank, which apparently there's a hilarious story about this. She's a mare, and Heads Up, she's named Heads Up Hank because I don't know if she mowed over Hank Franz, and there's something there. But she had drilled this kid, Mason Yancey, the first time they met. So he gets her in the short round and won the whole thing. And that kid was like, he was wide-eyed and thrilled. And it was pretty cool. Pretty cool to see. Cooper Cook had a chance to win it, and he missed his last one out. But what a memory for that young man, Mason Yancey. So good for him. I thought something was interesting enough to track down the answer to. So 3 bulldoggers tied for the last hole to make the short round. And something was mentioned like, well, they didn't take the splits or whatever, which seemed so odd to me. So I went to our go-to guy, Steve Knowles at the PRCA, and who I so appreciate. And he said on a one, like I said, what's the deal with a long round? Because I'm like, how would they break the tie when there's only one long round? What do you go back to or whatever? He said on a one go, basically one long round with a finals, if there is a tie for the last position, they will drop them. In other words, if they're going to take 12 people and 3 guys tie for 12th, none of them get to go. I'm like, what? And then if they drop them, they can only go down to 10. And if the splits go to less than 10 people, they have to take everyone. So the committee has the option of whether or not to take splits. And I'd love for you to say what your feeling is from a committee perspective. Of course, standing up for cowboys and cowgirls, I'm going to say I would beg a committee to take splits. Because can you imagine, out of all the people, maybe there's 150 people or 200 people in your event or whatever, and you're in the top 12 and they cut you because there was a tie? I'm like, why?
Yeah, I don't think that sounds. I didn't know that. That doesn't sound very fair. I can see how with the cattle and stuff, maybe it's a little bit cumbersome, right? Because if you've already got the pin set, I guess I don't know, right? Because you would be adding, if I understand you right, you would be adding 2 more guys to the final round, right?
You would take 14 instead of 12.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it doesn't sound fair. Doesn't sound fair. I really can't argue with you. I think I would have to let them in. Right, dropping all of them. I guess yeah, I don't. It's not the stupidest thing I've ever heard that they do. So, but I don't think it's fair. I don't. I wouldn't do that. I don't think. I think I'd let them in.
I would think that there would have to be some form of a tiebreak on one long round and a short, because in theory, what if 20 people tied for the last hole? Of course you can't take 20 people. So I can see, there being different degrees, but if it comes to 1 or 2 extra people in your perf, man.
Well,
I sure would.
we've got like 9 tiebreakers in our progressive, right? I mean, like the tiebreaker page is really, really long, but you have to, right? To me, you have to document, and it's in the ground rules. And maybe that is if they, I guess I don't know. In ours, it's in the ground rules that shows all the tiebreakers. And I mean, it goes all the way, you know what I mean?
And I could see, like in the rough stock events, you can say, okay, it's based on, if there's only a long round, I don't know, it's based on whoever had the higher spur ride or something like that. I don't know. But in the time events, how do you do that when their time is the same?
Well, you can go back to world standings, right? I mean, say it's fair or not, but you can find credible measures to go back to, because we do, right? Where you go back to world standings at this date, da da da. So there's ways that you can say they're fair or not fair, but there's
Right.
definitely things you can use as indicators to say you
Right.
get in because you accomplished this.
Okay. I just can't imagine a circumstance where I wouldn't rather see, if I had to break 2 guys' hearts to let one guy in, I'd rather see at least one guy get in than nobody get in. I'd rather see all 3 get in, but my next thing would be, I would prefer that one guy got in over nobody, so it's just interesting conversation.
I mean,
So
at least draw out of the 3. Like, I mean, you draw for everything else, put the 3 names in a hat and pull one out. I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's
luck of the
better than
draw.
just cutting all of them, I would think.
I agree.
Anyway,
I agree with that.
okay.
Believe it
So
or not, I agree with you.
I mentioned that I ran down to Cal Poly today to see Joe Beaver. So I ran into. I'm going to tell this little story because I was running down to the other end of the arena to see the coach. Ben Londa was in the water truck, and I wanted to say hello before I left. And 4-Star Rodeo, Jeff and Terry Davis. Okay, Terry's dad, Cecil Nickel, is like my dad's oldest friend. Besides Norm Emmerich, those 2 guys forever. They knew each other forever. Anyway, Jeff and Terry Davis of 4-Star Rodeo. Mandy her daughter was their breakaway rugby, but she told me this very quick story that I think is worthy of mentioning it, because we all get so aggravated when people try to say that like rodeo people don't care about, the animals or whatever. So she said, I thought of you the other day. So her dad is Jeff Davis of 4-Star, and they just lost their NFR saddle bronc Wall Street, and it's been 5 straight NFRs in the bronc riding, and this, by all accounts, would have been the 6th straight. Well, anyway, he colicked, and he's 17 years old now. My dad, being a veterinarian, always told people, you know what, so that it's not an emotional decision, kind of go through your herd and kind of, recognize the cost of colic surgery, recognize so that it's not an emotional decision when these things happen, decide, hey, would I or would I not, spend the money. So Jeff Davis goes to UC Davis, where I was born when my dad was a junior in vet school, and pays goodness knows what to have colic surgery on Wall Street. Well, he didn't make it. But let me tell you, can you imagine the astronomical bill? She said, I don't know that I've seen my dad cry, but like he cried. And then they hauled a 2,000-pound horse all the way back to Cottonwood so they could bury, Mandy's brother, Justin Davis, is an NFR team roper, and the 2 horses buried side by side are Wall Street and Justin's NFR healed horse. And so I guess I tell the story just because basically it's like, do not tell me that the animals are not part of our rodeo family. And this stuff comes up all the time, and we're constantly having to explain ourselves to people, but it's like, these people are heartbroken over a bucking horse, 17-year-old bucking horse. There are plenty of trail riders who would not have paid to put that horse on that table. It's not about the money.
It's every morning feeding. Like it's the same thing with someone has a pet. I mean, you think that you're going to not become emotionally attached, even to the house dog, right? But when you take care of those animals and you stand behind those yellow chutes and someone gets on them, you can't, you think you can control that emotion, I think, Kendra. But when it gets, I mean, I remember when Old Paint, the swayback horse that I used to perform with, that my dad performed with, that I inherited, he was 19 or 21 or something, like very old. And rational thought would have said, let him go, right? But that's easier said than done. Like, money doesn't matter when you sit together in an alley and it's 104 degrees and you go and perform together. And it's the same thing for these guys with these horses and bulls. Like it's stronger than the bond.
It's true. They love them, and the pride. I mean, the cost of that surgery and that care at UC Davis was exponentially more than any horse gets for going to the NFR. I promise you, it obviously. And so just the pride and the joy and the love for these animals is it's there. So I guess I get a little offended and frustrated when we have to constantly defend, try to prove that that's true or not. It's silliness. But anyway, okay, you go.
Well, on the rodeo side, I'm surprised you didn't bring this up, but I saw a post that I just had to bring up. Don Payne, did you see the post that Don Payne put on Facebook? It says, I missed the books to Puyallup Tour Finals, a rodeo I've worked all year to qualify for by 1 hour. PRCA says there's nothing they can do about it. The Tour Finals is a high-paying rodeo, and I was really counting on it. That being said, we are calling it a year and heading back to Texas.
Ow.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. The first time Taylor made the NFR, like there were like 28 of us that knew, that were like, just check it in. Because people from out here, or Joe Beaver or Kyle Lockett or different people are like, don't miss the boats on that one. Okay.
Well,
The thing
I mean,
about it,
you
yeah,
can't miss that stuff. It's horrible, right? But I mean, I understand it's a published time. I mean, it sucks, but you gotta follow the rules to maintain credibility. You know what I'm
well,
saying?
the way I don't know Don Payne personally, but sounds like he was a man about it. He owned it. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's terrible.
that's an ouch, big ouch.
Yeah,
But he owned it as his own mistake. Sounds like. I mean, he could have cussed the PRCA for not. Basically, the PRCA would have had to cheat to bend the rules for him, right?
correct, correct.
So
You would have had to change the rules, and that just loses credibility. You know, I think that Teton Ridge, they're having their big horse sale next month, right? So I think that's worth. I think that's interesting. Teton Ridge presented today. We'll talk more about it. And I noticed, and I'm pretty sure that Patrick Gotch, he has a big ranch in New Mexico. Ann Bleicher sent this to me. The RFD TV ranch is up for sale. So it looks like the Gotch girls are getting completely out of at least that side of the business. I think they still, they have RFD TV. And so I thought that was interesting. So if you've ever seen that place, it's pretty unique. And if you've got the money, it's for sale at landhub.com if you want to go buy Patrick Gotch's ranch.
didn't Patrick buy that place from Don Imus?
Yes, it was the old Imus Ranch. Yep. Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah. So today at the sponsor summit, now here's the deal. I don't know if this is insider trading and maybe No Spin will get sued, but I'm going to tell you some of the stuff. I'm not going to talk about the data for the sponsors and stuff like that. You know, the Western lifestyle in rodeo is growing. There's no secret about that. I thought the PRC did a really good job, Paul Woody and them, in kind of owning up to things that they needed to improve on. So hats off to them. I kind of felt sorry for some of the staff in the room that were getting literally shoved under the bus. But I thought and so again, I don't know. I'm going to just say what I learned because I asked if I could. We do know that they're celebrating the 40 years. The one thing that I saw that I thought was the icons that they're going to salute is going to be Benny Binion, Sean Davis, and Dan Mortensen. That's cool. And then Thursday night, the first night on the 4th, I think this is cool, is going to be throwback night. And they're asking the sponsors for old signs. In other words, can we use the same logo of when we first came to Vegas? They're going to have the bunting stuff up, and they're going to encourage everybody, including the fans, to wear vintage 80s stuff. So that means, Kendra, pull out your Rockies, get your Aquanet ready.
Oh, this is so
You're
great.
going vintage to the rodeo.
Ode always says, "Oh, I love the Rockies era," and I just somebody just gave me a picture Sunday of me at a branding years ago wearing Rockies, so I sent it to Ode. I'm like, "Here you go, there I am."
The
Wearing
Rockies. But everybody.
Did you say that's opening night?
Yes, opening night, retro night. Now, there were people that probably should not have gotten in Rockies, but they did. But as a whole, Rockies could cover up a lot. And here's another thing, the NFR jackets that the contestants are going to get, they look exactly like the original jackets. They're corduroy, and they're only going to sell 150 of those, and they are cool. Like, I got to say, it's really, really cool. They're corduroy. They didn't go with the satin. Now, I mean, if you look at the Pro Rodeo Tour jackets back in the day, the Winston Tour jackets, remember they were satin? Remember the satin jackets?
I remember when I was in college rodeo, it was an award, a red satin jacket from Miller Lite.
Yeah. So, I mean, get ready. All of you no spinners, start thinking about your outfit for Thursday retro. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And so 40 years in Vegas, that's kind of the theme, which I think is pretty cool. Um, some of the numbers that I thought were interesting is that the rounds are paying $36,668 this year for a round, 94 grand, $94,036 for the average. That's $1 million more in 25 than 24. Now, I'm not mathing it because I don't know if some of that money went to stock contractors or how they broke it up. But $12,501,505 in 24, $13,501,505 in 25, and 26, a $4.05 million in overall increases. So I think, I'm glad to see that it's $1 million more. Um, they did some demos. The fan base of rodeo's always been really old. It's getting younger. Hats off. Teton Ridge did a presentation where they're showing the stuff that they're going to completely redo the set on Western Sports Roundup, and it's going to look much more modern yet Western. And I thought it looked like a really cool design. They're building new facilities there at and staying in Cowtown. And so I thought that was really cool. And Teton bragged, and they should have bragged. They did 9 stops of Rodeo Live. They did 3 last year. They did 9. They announced that they're going to do 12 stops, 12 rodeos next year, and they're going to be. Remember last year Teton Ridge had a stage in the fan zone. Kendra, Greg remembers this because he was a part of it. But they didn't have Cowboy Channel, right? So now it'll be integrated, and their programming will start 1 in the afternoon. I think you're a part of some of that programming. It'll start in 1 in the afternoon or noonish, runs all the way through, with Pro Rodeo Live being in the fan zone live all 10 days. They bragged on some of their, which I think is great, by the way. I think they're doing some really good things on the Cowboy Channel to get younger viewers, like Rocker Steiner's Hell on Wheels, that they're editing now. They came to the Utah Days of 47 rodeo. They're editing those now. They dropped a social media tease that was Post Malone and them at Spanish Fork. I think that will be a very interesting and skewed to a younger demographic. Some of the old heads, these armchair quarterbacks, are probably going to sit there and watch it just to get pissed off, which is fine as long as they watch it, right? Um, they've got they've got the boys in blue coming out, which will be the Wrights, some feature programming on them. So, and their television is dying, right? The cable television world where the Cowboy Channel resides is losing ground to all of the other streaming and fast channels. The fast channels, the ones free, you can get the streaming. So Teton Ridge is making a strong effort to take that programming of the Cowboy Channel and get it available to everybody, which I thought, hats off. Good work. Pluto TV, Prime, Netflix, these are all people they're talking to, which I think is great for our sport. Hands off to them. So it was a really good presentation from Teton Ridge. I thought with the Las Vegas events people got up there, they talked about the retro, which we talked about, but they talked a little bit about the big trade show downtown, Cowboy Christmas, and they're moving the. You may know this, Kendra. They're moving they've moved it every year, it seems like, but they changed the name. We talked about this earlier. It's the Junior NFR again. Yay. Should have always been the Junior NFR. It's the Junior NFR, and they're moving it to the Platinum lot, which is the lot across from the east entrance where No Spin Rodeo had our stage. They're moving it to the Platinum lot because they needed that parking for the vendors. But that'll help, and that because they're trying to get people. And so listen to me if you're going to this show. It's easy to get in the east side. It's easier. There's more parking over there. There's more, and they're trying to, there's the Tesla tunnel. They're trying to get people to learn to come in on the east side instead of just the west side all the way across. And so they're moving the Junior NFR over there, which if we're in Cowboy Commons again with no spin, it'll be a easy walk for you across the street. I mean, you won't even break a sweat to go over with Oat and the whole deal that you guys produce over there. So I thought that that was really, really cool that they're moving that to there. Let me look at the rest of my notes here. There's rumor that Dolly Parton is going to have that she's going to have a big thing in that East Cowboy Commons with her Dolly World, I think, and that she may make an appearance one morning over there in the East entrance by where the stage where we were is. So that will be cool. I'm not going to say any more because I don't know that that will happen, but there was some talk about that. And so, and the PBR and the, excuse me, bad move. The PRC is gearing up for next year's 90th anniversary. And they've got a lot of really, really good ideas about celebrating the 90th next year, right? Starting in 25 or 26 at the beginning of the year, the 90th anniversary. So I thought those were some cool little snippets that I thought was really cool from the 5.5 hours of sitting in Resorts World, and lots of new sponsors, like Christmas side and on the NFR side, some cool new sponsors that are coming on board. So yeah, there's some interesting insider trading.
You know
For
what
the
I'm
NFR
super
this year.
proud of? You mentioned the junior NFR, and I I mean I'm so proud of Oat and how he runs that deal. And this, this 40th, um, that it's the 40th since Oat won his first championship and whatever. But what he's doing personally for those kids this year is making it a 10 header, which right now in this day and age with the cost of cattle and all that,
Ooh,
I'm like, are you sure? And I'm
but
so
that's the
proud
real
of him.
deal. That's the real deal.
It is the
Yeah.
real deal, and I'm so proud of him for doing that. So it's not
Well,
it's the expensive route, but it's the coolest thing you can do.
yeah, that is hats off. That's that you want to emulate that, right? You want to emulate that experience. So cool, but that's the kind of stuff that Oat would do, right? That's just
It's
very Oatberry.
yeah.
And by the way, they had the 85 champions here with him, and a part of their whole marketing campaign and photo shoot and sneak peek, those guys may be handing out the back numbers at the back number ceremony. Wouldn't that be cool to get the back number handed to you by the 85 champs? And the other thing that I thought was really good, they reported the Nielsen ratings, 40 million rodeo fans currently documented. That's a real number. And that's exciting for the Western lifestyle and the sport. 39.6 million Nielsen documented fans for professional rodeo.
I have a question about that because I used to be in on like the annual report and how it was reported and stuff. So my question on that, based on years ago, does that mean, I always had to ask, does that mean that, say, the Cowboy Channel has the ability to reach that many households? Or does that mean that many individual households have actually tuned in? Do you know?
I think it's an engagement thing,
Is it
but
potential?
well, it's those that have documented and engaged in watching a broadcast for a certain amount of time. Now, here's what's really interesting. They released some AI stuff at this. So first off, if you don't think that your phone is tracking everything you do, you're wrong, because they released some AI data, which was very interesting. But here's what I thought was most interesting. There, I'm trying to see where I wrote down the number of apps that are reporting the data to this AI. And I want to say it was like 300 apps. So if you have any one of these 300 apps open, It can tell you, so they can literally say, they use the Nashville rodeo. They were literally saying 3 million people ate at Raising Cane's the hour before, or 3,000 people, excuse me, to get this right. 3,000 people went through the doors of Raising Cane's before the rodeo. And so that because they compared a smaller Tennessee rodeo, trying to remember the name, with a big Nashville rodeo, but the amount of data that they're able to geofence and say will freak you right
Okay.
out.
And can I say on the freak you right out thing, you might want to somehow figure out a way to double check your facts on the old Meta AI, because this week, Sue Rosoff, master photographer, puts up a picture 25 years apart, I'm going to say. Here's me holding my baby Lane with my friend John Browning on the left. On the right, she reenacted the exact same picture when we were in Vegas, me grown up Lane at 25 years old and John Browning. Okay, side by side, 25 years apart. Isn't that cute, you know? And then I noticed that there's this new feature underneath a post like that that says Meta AI questions. There were 2 questions underneath her post. One said, what does Lane Carney do for a living? And it said, he is a realtor on the Central Coast of California, which is true. And then the second question, who are Lane Carney's parents? It says Kendra Santos and John Growney.
Sorry,
Um,
really?
what?
Kendra, are you?
Hey, Pam Minnick texts me. She goes, well, how was it? I'm like, oh no. I mean,
John boy, Mr. Growney, I got to text you.
That's just fiction. And so I'm just saying we do need to be careful, because that's just not true, you know?
Well, so I downloaded, because Anthony promoted it to me. I downloaded Grok, this AI, and I've just been, like Donna, my wife, and I have just been using this thing for everything, right? Because it takes out all the ads. So you can ask it a question and it just gives you what I thought were facts until Donna forwards me. One of the AI guys that created AI basically says AI just makes shit up.
I'm just telling you, you better not take it to the bank.
I better be a little careful. You better be careful with AI, because evidently it just makes some stuff up if it doesn't have the answers. Wow, you and John, that's cool.
That's just that's so uncool. I mean, come on now.
Well, anyway, those were interesting things, and we've got a lot. We've talked about a lot, but we didn't want, because you and I agreed, we have not done feedback in a while, and we want to stay in touch with our no spinners. And you guys, when you see us out there, when you tell us you listen, it makes it all worthwhile. So thank you when you listen and watch. We appreciate you.
We listen back too, so we really do. So that's cool.
So, Greg, you want to lay some feedback on us before we call it a day here?
Sure thing. So our first feedback comes from 541. Can you explain the press release from the WCRA today? Is the WCRA out of business then, or do they just have new leadership that isn't Bobby Moat?
Okay. Well, I actually asked someone for an official response to this, and so their official response, correct. WCRA will no longer be producing events. The World Championship Junior Rodeo will continue through the Lazy E Arena, and the Women's Rodeo World Championship will continue on through the PBR. Bobby Moat will be continuing with Reliance Ranches training performance horses.
Yeah, that's what I had. The PBR, is becoming, if it's not executed yet, the sole owner. Now they kept Lindsay Rosser as the commissioner. Sammy Joe's still an ops manager, so it's the same faces on the delivery side. TKO, I think what I understand who took over was kind of a paper change. Remember we talked about that when the PBR sold, but Endeavor Media and all that. But TKO basically manages from the upper side what Sean does now. But I understand that they have a genuine interest in women's sports and specifically in women's rodeo. So we'll see them put a media deal together. Um, Kyle Jones, some of you knew Kyle. He's still the director. He's still the director of communications for Gary McKinney with Reliance Ranches, Lazy E. And they kind of folded into the IPRA, the WCRA did. They kind of folded into the IPRA. And so Bobby's still, like you said, I think Bobby's still running the horse property for Gary. I think that I haven't heard about Scott Davis and Casey Dugan. They may be candidates to be hired. Dale Jurgen with the IPRA and Lazy E, which is Dan Wall. They'll continue the junior. So as everything that you said. Now VRQ is still out there. That's the virtual rodeo qualifier, which is how they're qualifying for some of this thing. Clay Dean, I think, is a part of that. And we'll see what VRQ, Gary McKinney and them kept the VRQ and they're keeping it open. Breakaway rope and Dengshire helped that. But I know that they're looking for opportunities to use the virtual rodeo qualifier as qualifications for maybe even in the future some events we're familiar with. Now, I don't know how that would ever work. I just don't. But I can tell you this, like you said, the price of timed event cattle and everything is making slack, and you're not going to hear this, but it's making it hard for rodeos to afford to do. And I know what you're thinking, but it's expensive now with cattle. And so I don't know if VRQ will come into a role there. I hear whispers about it. I can't imagine how VRQ would qualify you for a PRCA rodeo, but I'm hearing that some of that could happen. But the WCRA is gone.
Okay, and I enjoyed some things about the WCRA, starting with the fact that millions of new dollars were put into cowboy and cowgirl pockets. And the first one I went to was in Chicago, affiliated with the PBR. And I remember getting to hang out with Tandy Freeman. I remember saying to him, "This is the first time I have had chills up my spine since I was, since the very start of the PBR, because watching like Jackie Crawford win 50 grand in the breakaway roping in that packed house in Chicago, it was extraordinary." And another super highlight for me with the WCRA was getting to follow along RC Landingham winning the $1 million in the Triple Crown of Rodeo for winning 3 straight majors. And Kyle Jones, you mentioned, who is an extraordinary talent and a gold standard human being. He and I went on some really cool adventures up to Hat Creek, California, to where RC is from, and that deal changed his life. And going through the injuries and the horrific injuries and different things he'd been through, but he won more that one night in Fort Worth than he'd won his whole storied career with all these NFRs and everything. And that's not putting down the NFR, but it's to say some really amazing things happen to people, and the underdog stories, that Jarvis Demery or a Tori Johnson, or these different people that no one had ever heard of, had some glorious moments because on any given day they were good enough. And I mean, sometimes it was college girl or different things, but it was like there's some really cool things happen. And before we leave the subject of the WCRA, I would also mention that Rob Smets, 5-time world champion bullfighter, who is the current Rodeo Historical Society president, has been a very loyal WCRA team member, and he's been out there teaching some bullfighting schools and announcing and stuff since they announced the closure. But I hope that the Casey Duggan and Rob Smets and these guys, I hope that they the next door opens wide for them, because those guys worked their asses off, and I'm so proud of them as people. And I was really proud to be on teams with them at different times, because those are stand-up people, and they worked so hard. And Lindsay Rosser Sumter and Sammy Jo Smith are going with the women's over with the PBR. They work all day, every day on that. They work so hard on that. That's their baby. And I'm glad that they get to continue with that.
Well, hats off to Gary McKinney for writing big checks that went into the sport. The problem, it's not the problem, but you so many times, and we've seen it over and over again in this sport, that sustainability is very important, right? It is. And you can't take advantage of these big checkbooks forever, right? These guys are rich for a reason, because they're smart, and they'll invest. So the unfortunate thing is that it must not, obviously, I think, have panned out or shown, profitability, I'm assuming, in the future for this to have happened. But great people were a part of it. Gary wrote checks that didn't bounce. He put a lot of money into the sport. There was still recirculating money. I mean, the VRQ still is putting money in that gets paid back, but that was just a part of it. And I will say that it gave people, the Days of 47 was a part of the WCRA. We did it because initially the opportunity, because we're a gold medal rodeo, right, of people that have the talent but can't go full time to get to that stage, is a very valid initiative that I hope is rekindled, because that part is super cool.
Yes, and there we were in Salt Lake City, and Tacey K. Webb won the breakaway roping and cried up there on stage. She had just gotten through COVID as a frontline nurse in the ICU, and she's, if in case nobody's noticed, she's not out there, with Zach Youngblood, her boyfriend. It's because she's back in school furthering her nursing. I feel like something maybe with anesthesia or something, but that's a smart cookie. But she was world class. She is world class with her roping talent, but she chooses to help people every day. I mean, anyway, it was a great stage, and I'm thankful for the millions that
In Bobby's release, he said our intent was to help the Cowboys, and they did. They helped. They helped our sport. I would have loved to see it sustain. Not knocking anybody, just wouldn't it have been better? As we look at all of these things, even when you look at a Teton Ridge, and you look at all these things, sustaining is important for the longevity of our sport. Be smart, be wise in how you go about this, because those guys don't write checks forever. That's all I'm saying.
Well, okay. And the last thing I would love to say before I don't is, let history not forget that the WCRA stepped out on the ledge first for the breakaway ropers. And this phenomenon started in the WCRA. So,
well, because they were very active in the VRQ.
Well, they offered equal money to the breakaway ropers, which had not been done before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
What does a rodeo like Corpus Christi do now? Do they go back to the PRCA?
Yeah, I bet they do. I've got a call, but I bet they do. and that'll be good for Corpus. I mean, you know, the tail end, the tail end of the WCRA, the pool of players had gotten not as strong as it was when it started, right? And so I think that that's their. Well, I shouldn't say that. Good question. I'll find out the answer and ask me again in the next no spin, and I'll have an answer for that.
Gotcha. All right, next up from the 210. I love you. I love all no spin rodeo episodes. I'm definitely a no spinner. I have my luggage tags from the NFR on all my suitcases. I just wanted to drop a note and tell you all that the number 65 Reno Rosser and the number 64 New Rodeo in Kanab, Utah episodes were exceptional. Just keep doing what you're doing, and I look forward to my no spin escapes each week. Could you explain what's happening with the WCRA? I saw there's some kind of change.
Thank you. Thank you for, yeah, thanks for having those on your suitcases. We'll have some more at the NFR this year. If you didn't get your luggage tag, they're colorful and you can find your lost bag. And we talked about the WCRI, but thank you for being a no spinner. And I'm glad to see, you know, we try to create variety in these episodes and talk to different people and talk to different things, because there's a lot of spokes in the wheel of professional rodeo. And like Kendra has said in the past, it takes all of those spokes to make the wheel go round. And we want to cover them.
Okay, up next is from Gordon, Nebraska. Just came across an article regarding litigation between the PBR and Dr. Phil's TV channel. Would be interesting to hear that story along with a synopsis of the event in Colorado that replaced the Cheyenne PBR. On a different note, I have always been curious about the t-shirt guy at the NFR. First time I saw him, I thought he was an out of control fan throwing his clothes. Obviously, he's part of the show. Whoever came up with that idea was a genius.
Oh, that guy, and I don't remember his name, but
The dancer, right?
yes, like these hired.
Who we've literally watched age, who's now has a dad bod. Like we've watched him for. If you're just now figuring out he's staged, then wow.
Oat and I, when we knew whatever is this guy appears, we always have to, wherever our seats have to be where Oat can put his poor left leg, his poor left knee into the aisle. So we're always on an aisle. Well, here comes this guy, this kind of pot-bellied dad bod guy, and he's all sweaty, and he walks down and like sits on Oat's leg. And I mean, he's like, "Some bitch, get out!" Yeah. It was like, what? But then here he goes, and we're just like, oh. Anyway, Oat was mortified. But yes, he puts on like 18 t-shirts and then strips them off and throws them to everybody, right? I don't remember the guy's name, but yeah, he's very popular.
Well, it hasn't changed a whole lot, but people enjoy it, I guess, because they're like, there it goes again. This is, you know, and the PBR. So I don't have current information on the Dr. Phil PBR thing. So I'll apologize for not digging into this. However, I will say that back when this was going down, I talked to both parties a little bit about this, and both of them had legitimate grounds for separating. Okay. Now, what's going to be interesting that I don't have, nor will I ever probably get my hands on, is the contract, because both of them had their own reasons for separating. So I'll tell you all that. I don't think, you know, Dr. Phil's very credible. It surprised me that it went down the way it did with Dr. Phil and them, and such an abrupt stop. But it's going to come down to litigation, and it's going to come down to contract language, and we'll find out when it happens who wins. But I think both sides of the, you know, The PBR said, they're supposed to put our broadcast on, and they just told us they're not doing it anymore. Well, on the other side, X amount of revenues were supposed to be generated that on that side weren't generated. So they had grounds for not continuing. So again, that's all hearsay. So I don't want to talk about it because I don't know. But there was a contract, and they'll get to the bottom of it, and they'll be a loser in these lawsuits because I think they're suing each other now.
But what's interesting about something like that is over such a colossal multi-million-dollar deal, clearly both sides had a team of attorneys craft and revise however many times. So you would think that both sides thought it was ironclad, so.
Yep, exactly. And somebody will decide that in court, and someone will lose or settle. We'll see who settles out of court if that's the case. If there's a weakness, but that'll be interesting. That's an interesting thing to follow along on the Cheyenne. So interestingly enough, I thought it was a blessing that Cross Canadian Ragweed ended up playing the PBR show during Cheyenne's X Bulls. We had Sean Gleason on. We talked about they were doing it at the same time. And CCR has a devout following. I understood that they had a successful event in Fort Collins. Sean, remember, guaranteed me that it would be financially in the positives. I still don't know how that maths, but I guarantee you Sean's going to say it was in the positive. I still can't, and I heard that the X Bulls was great. I heard it was a great event. It was well attended. The only thing that I'll say is there's no way that those two events didn't hurt each other somehow. They both can't say, I guess they can both say that, but I can't imagine that a bull riding fan didn't have to choose. That's all I'm saying, and went to one or the other. So,
Well, unless there are enough bull riding fans in the region to go around and both were big hits, I don't know.
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of rodeo fans that may not be diehard fans that definitely went to Cheyenne, and I think that's a benefit to bull riding. But I'll tell you what, the X Bulls bull riders are riding bulls. Like, there was a time when the X Bulls wasn't as good a quality of bull riding as you would see, but the X Bulls guys, there's guys in professional rodeo right now, and we know a couple of them because they're in a fight. These guys ride bulls. I mean, these guys are bull riders, and they're not just riding pups. So, and now the bull riding, the PBR is still the great, there's no doubt the very best bull riders are in the PBR as a whole, and they get on ranked bulls as a whole. It's definitely a notch. But still, the X Bulls that's a good product.
But there are extraordinary guys in both.
There is.
And
For sure.
yeah, and like Caldwell, I know that's tricky on like committees and announcers. Like nobody made the whistle in the short round. That's a bummer. It's tough to sell that at the end of a rodeo, right, Greg? I mean, you were there.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting? That was just a one round. There was no short round in the bull riding.
Then how did they?
Sure.
Yep. For rough stock, they brought back the top 12, but for bull riding, it was just a straight one header.
Well, then they forgot to tell the TV crew.
Oh, but
I've got another big announcement that I just thought, talking about TV crew. Guess what? Guess who will be calling the action for the NFR?
I want to guess.
Teton, go ahead.
I want to guess because I want to be right so bad. Metters and Knowles.
Yes, they're back. The Bob Costas of Rodeo and Metters. Yes, they're back. They've signed a contract. You will hear the same voices that have rocked you before on the broadcast again, even with Teton Ridge taking it over. So I thought that was really interesting news.
Earlier this year, a lot of us had heard that maybe that wouldn't happen. And then when we all watched at least part of the broadcast from Calgary, I'm like,
made you wonder.
These guys are such winners. They cannot be denied.
Well, I think they could have been denied, but evidently there were some fan surveys or something. But anyway, they're back, which is, I think, I really do think those guys do a really good job. And I think that it would be noticeable if you put two new people in there. You would then notice how good a job they do. Does that make sense? If you missed them, right? How many times have you watched football when they bring the new guy in and you're like, man, that old guy was really good, right? I mean, you don't really realize how good they are till you put someone else in there and it fails.
Al Michael. I just thought he was so great.
Yep.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is Metters and Butch, it's like they're comfortable and familiar. They're our friends. They know what they're talking about, and the they're good humans, and they're just nobody ever is like, oh, those lippy, arrogant. No, they're just good. And I mean, Butch, it's like, well, he's won the NFR in the bronc riding, but his kid has also been there in the bulldogging. Like they, you know, they're so versed, talk about all of it, and they're just beloved. So
And the PRC media is going to, evidently, it was a challenging feat for them, but they've somehow defined 40 of the greatest moments, and they're going to start releasing those on social media 40 days out.
oh,
So if you watch that,
big shooter.
what?
That's my
Did you do
job.
it? That's your job? Well, how do you pick 40 out of 40 years? I mean, you're going to leave some out, and I'm going to call you on it.
No, but you know what? I just heard something on the radio that was so perfect. Dave Ramsey, the financial guy, said something about writing a book, and he said the perfect thing to me because I keep telling Las Vegas Vince, it's like, do you know this is, and I've worked on these. I'm working on this with Jeff Metters and Las Vegas Vince, and so, but I've worked on other really cool projects like this about 60 years of the NFR, different defining moments, different things. This one is 40 years in Vegas. And that's what every time I'm like, man. And I mean, just Stetson Wright alone. I'm like, I've talked to Stetson. I'm going to talk to his dad. I'm going to talk to his grandpa. I'm going to talk to
But
because
technically speaking, you really can't define the 40, because if you go through the end of this NFR, something could happen that should be a part of those 40.
yeah, but you know what? But here's the thing. What I started down saying about the book on his point was you could just never end, never end, never end. Sooner or later, you have to print the book. That was the guy that I heard on the radio today making the point. And I keep saying on this deal, it's going to make me crazy. But we've worked on these other projects the last we lots of these projects. I'm always like, oh my God, that I would miss one. But it's like, you know what? Like they keep saying, it's all a matter of opinion anyway. But I mean, I'm talking to all these guys. I'm like, do you want to pick one moment for Cody Ohl? Do you want to pick, you know, okay, Dan Mortensen, Stetson Wright, whatever. I mean, it's pretty easy if you say, okay, Kai Hamilton, well, that's pretty obvious what happened, to him. And he gets car killed and then comes back and, all that. But it, no two people would agree on all 40 anyway. So it's not about that. And anybody who just wants to split a hair and goes, you missed one I mean, come on now.
I'll do that to you.
Okay, well, you, me, and John Growney, I can take both of you at the same time.
I mean, we did find it was revealing today about Growney. So I'm sorry. Hey, there was another cool thing that was shown. Greg and I have been talking about this. Greg will find this very interesting. They're dabbling in AI and videoing, and they did some video of barrel racers in Reno. And the data at the top, this was unrefined data, at the top of the screen was showing all of these indexes, which you and I have talked about this, and we've disagreed about the fact that technology exists to show amazing things. And it was showing, for instance, 33 miles an hour was the maximum speed that this horse had reached. But what was really interesting, if I can get my hands on it, the horses were slowing down at the eye by like 3 miles an hour. And I mean, this is stuff that if if you look at these futurity horses, you look at the money in this sport, you watch this AI stuff will start framing up how these girls ride and how these guys ride and stuff, because it was showing how square shoulders were on a bronc horse, right? How square were how literally square with the animal was this guy's shoulders. And the data points up there were like 20 of them, Kendra, 20 of them that that are literally just marking these spots so quickly. And it's just, you watch, that stuff is coming and you're not gonna like it, but it's coming.
Do you think eventually AI will judge riding events?
I don't know how well, here's the deal, it'll definitely question the judges even more. I mean, even at the new NFL football games, if you're a football fan, and I hate preseason games, but they're doing the virtual like so you know how the chain gang runs out and they put the chain out? Well, that's part of the excitement. I mean, the guy's running out there, he can barely breathe. Fatty's got one stick, Skinny's got another. They're stretching it out. Charlie with the guns, referee standing there with the chain in his hand.
And then
and you're waiting. Yeah. And you're waiting to see now what they had on TV is you got Charlie with the guns, referee holding the ball, looking up at the ceiling, right? Because there's a camera that comes in and shows you if they made it by 1 foot, 1 inch or whatever, but it's incredibly not as fun. You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't feel, you're like, oh, he's staring at the ceiling. Oh, yeah, I don't know. So
can you program into a computer degree of difficulty on a buck and horse for bull? Can you? I don't know.
Well, I don't know if you're rating G-force and drop, like if there's so many index, like this is another podcast. This should be another podcast. So let's not get there. But imagine if you're literally rating G-force and drop and height and kick, like this stuff is all documented. You couldn't have a better scoring system if that's the case. That's a whole nother podcast. But it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. The red flag on the barriers that they got to be able to see to hit the button. It's so unfair and all that. Watch it, people.
It'll start with the mark out rule.
Yep. Watch it, people. This stuff is coming. Get your drawers ready.
Oh, hey, everybody.
We already said that AI can lie. I mean, because Kendra obviously did not have an affair with Brownie and have a child. I don't think.
The love of. Yeah.
Okay. Well, final thoughts, Greg. This has kind of been down your alley.
What, the AI stuff?
Yeah, the AI stuff. You love that.
Yeah, I play with the AI stuff, but I also realize that it's only as good as what it learns, and it's learning off of good stuff, bad stuff. So you definitely can't.
But isn't that
put 100%
the definition of humans? Aren't we all as good as what we've learned?
Yes, but I think we also have the ability to decipher what's not real and what's, looking at a picture, understand that these two people are not the parents of a kid. That doesn't make them the parents. So
you just can't believe everything that's on your phone, but everybody does. Everybody does.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, and AI is there was an interesting movie that I saw that they talked about how unleashing, or the kind of the backstory of the movie was some social media guy put this AI into their system, and then all of a sudden all these people were creating all these different AI posts that were showing different things, which would kind of like just domino effect everything in the world. And all of a sudden the world's falling apart because everything you see stuff that's on AI that's not happening, but it's offending you. So you're going to go out and do this. And it was a very interesting look at what AI could do if it was actually unleashed into the masses to the point where, people could use it to create, false narratives. And
I'm trying to catch an Uber to get from Resorts World here to make the podcast on time. And I'm behind 4 vehicles that look like capsules with all these antennas and stuff sticking off of them, driverless cabs.
mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about a few of them. They're all over here, and they look like a capsule. People are sitting in them talking. There's no driver. There's just antennas. They're making left-hand turns. My Uber driver cut one off. I think it might have even honked at us. So there you have it. That's the world getting to.
It's coming.
It's coming.
So.
It's coming. Final thoughts, Miss Santos?
I better go hit Granny up for some child support. Gotta go.
You should. He's good. Yeah. See what you get out of that. That's to be sweet. Yeah. Good luck with that. Well, everybody, what a wild ride today. We just did what we normally do. We just ran off of whatever we could think of. We want to thank all of you. Thank you to the First Lady of Pro Rodeo Journalism, who is loved in this sport. Thank you, Greg, for putting this all together. Thank all of you for watching. Thank you for listening on your way to work. Thank you for being a no spinner. Hey, if you haven't, tell somebody about it. We would love to have some more no spinners out there. Send in your feedback. Greg, how do you send in that feedback?
Send feedback to nospinfeedback@gmail.com, or you can text us at 817-668-2395.
That's it for this episode of No Spin. Thank you all. We'll see you in a week. Be safe out there. Watch out for AI. It's not all what you think it is. There you have it. See y'all later.